So let me take you to the next talk, that is lessons learned from the great study. We have none other than Dr. Brij Mohan Makkar sir. For this, he's a leading senior diabetologist and obesity specialist in the country, and a number of feathers in his cap. So let's, without wasting any time, look forward to the wonderful talk of lessons learned from the great study. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Anjali. Thanks to Team IDEC, Sanjay, Neeta, everyone in the team for this great opportunity, and must congratulate all of you for putting up such a great show. Without wasting time, I think I will share my screen. So I am going to speak on glycemia reduction approaches in diabetes, the great study, which was a basically comparative effectiveness study for evaluating the second line agents after metformin. I don't have any disclosures for this slide presentation. So this study was presented at the ADA on 28th of June 2021, and this was the total group, David Nathan and co-workers who presented the details there. Background of the study is that the number of diabetes patients increased by 3 times between 1985 and 2011 in the United States, and this study was conducted in the United States. And also 8 new classes of glucose-lowering drugs were introduced between 1995 and 2010, but without achieving much, the cost of treatment rose by 3 times to $18 billion per year between 2001 and 2012. We remember these slides, from way back 2009, 2010 ADA ESD consensus recommendations, where it was recommended that after lifestyle and metformin, the second agent can be, picked up from the well-validated therapies and less validated therapies. And just to remind you that even DPP-4 inhibitors and GLP-1 receptor agonists were considered as less validated therapies at that time. The glycemic control was always 7% or less because we had enough data to show that if we achieve less than 7%, there is a significant reduction in microvascular complications. So the rationale of study was to do a head-to-head comparison to guide what should be the second choice after metformin. And it was understood that no company would have financial incentive in performing such study, and there was no data to focus on individualization of therapy or personalized medicine. So this study was basically designed to help guide the choice of second glucose lowering agent, which could be added to metformin lifestyle interventions. Depending on the A1C lowering efficacy, the duration of effectiveness or durability of control, and the safety of the molecule. The study also was designed to address the individualization therapy and the cost benefit. So 4 different classes of drugs were chosen, which were already FDA approved: glimepiride, sitagliptin, liraglutide, and glargine. And these were added to as the second line agent. The SGLT2 inhibitors were not included because first SGLT2 inhibitor was introduced in US after the great study was already planned and funded. The primary metabolic outcome was time to achieving A1C of more than 7%, which was confirmed. So that means time to failure of glycemic control beyond A1C 7%. Secondary metabolic outcome was time to A1C of more than 7.5%. And third, at this point of time, the therapy was intensified by adding glargine. And the patients were followed for tertiary metabolic outcome, which was again the time to A1C of more than 7.5%. Study also tried to determine the phenotypic characteristics associated with the response to the 4 different classes of medications. So the patients who were screened, type 2 diabetes patients who were already on metformin and had A1C of more than 6.8% and duration of diabetes less than 10 years were screened, up titrated on metformin to optimize metformin therapy, anything upwards of 1,000 to 2,000, and were randomized to 4 groups. 5,000 patients were randomized to 4 groups: sulfonylureas, DPP-4, GLP-1 receptor agonist, which was liraglutide, and glargine. And these patients were followed up for the primary outcome, which was A1C more than 7%, which was confirmed, and on maximally tolerated of the assigned therapy. Now, these patients were continued on the assigned therapy and followed up for the secondary metabolic outcome of more than A1C more than 7.5%. And those who achieved this secondary metabolic outcome, they were initiated on glargine therapy if they were on oral agents, or if they were already on glargine and metformin, then the insulin therapy was intensified. And these patients were followed up for tertiary metabolic outcome of more than 7.5% again, where the insulin therapy was further intensified. The recruitment time was almost 4 years, and the follow-up was also 4 years. This is the various, states, cities where the centers were there for the study. The average age was 57.2 years. Most of the patients between 45 to 60 and more than 60. Two-third men, one-third women. Almost two-third white population, 20% black population, and 3%, about 4% Asian population. Uh, the means duration of follow-up was 5 years, and the median duration was also 5 years. This slide shows adherence to different therapies, and adherence to therapies over 7 years period, right from recruitment to follow-up, was pretty good with all the groups. Now, if you look at the primary outcome, the percentage of patients who achieved the primary outcome of A1C more than 7% was highest in the sitagliptin group, followed by glimepiride and then by liraglutide and glargine. And if you look at the trajectory of glucose levels in these patients, there was a significant drop in the A1C levels at the end of 1 year, but then there was gradual worsening of the glucose control in all the arms of study. Now, time to achieving primary outcome was 1.9 years in sitagliptin arm, which was almost 4 months less than glimepiride and 6 months less than the glargine and liraglutide arms. The percentage of patients who achieved secondary outcome was again highest in the sitagliptin arm, 55%, followed by glimepiride, and the least was in the glargine arm. Now, coming to the tertiary outcome, again the time to tertiary second. This is time to secondary outcome was also the lowest in the sitagliptin arm, which was almost 4.5 months less than glimepiride and about 5 months less than the liraglutide and glargine. Now, if we look at the the microvascular outcomes, there was no difference in the development of microalbuminuria or macroalbuminuria or the distal sensory polyneuropathy. The microvascular outcome summary showed that there was no difference in the different arms, whether it was the development of moderately or severely increased albuminuria or EGFR of less than 60 or neuropathy. Now, if you look at the any cardiovascular, any CVD, which was one of the secondary outcomes, the NECVD, time to NECVD was lowest in the liraglutide arm and not much different in the other three groups. And if you look at the numbers in terms of NECVD, it was again lowest in the liraglutide arm as compared to glimepiride and glargine, and highest in the sitagliptin arm. Other serious adverse events were not very different in different treatment groups. There was no increase in pancreatitis or pancreatic cancer in liraglutide or sitagliptin arm. And if you look at the summary of primary metabolic outcomes, overall majority, which was more than 70% of the participants, reached the primary outcome of more than 50%. Primary outcome of more than 7% A1C, and more than 50% did so within first 3 years. The primary metabolic outcome occurred less frequently in the glargine and liraglutide treated arm, and the sitagliptin treated participants reached the primary outcome almost 4 months before glimepiride and almost 6 months before the liraglutide and glargine arm. Glargine and liraglutide were relatively more effective than glimepiride, and all three were found to be more effective as compared to sitagliptin in terms of improving the A1C control. The secondary outcomes and the secondary and tertiary metabolic outcomes, if you look at that, the confirmed, outcomes demonstrated a significant benefit among the originally assigned patients to glargine and liraglutide compared to the oral agents. Glimepiride and sitagliptin had more tertiary metabolic outcomes as compared to glargine and liraglutide, and they were similar in magnitude. So with this, these were the results from great study, and these were the centers involved. With this, I end my presentation. I hope I have finished very much in time.